We're back live, and after getting a hint of the capabilities of the new Sony A1 in that film, I'm now joined by Sony Pro Support Manager, Mike Bubalo. Mike, thanks for being here.
Thank you for
Mike is going
having
to
me.
walk
It's
us
a really exciting day. Yeah.
Mike is going to walk us through the tech and the features in the Sony A1. As we go along, please feel free to submit your questions in the chat. Take it away, Mike.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So today, I mean, a lot of you already saw the exciting news. It's absolutely breathtaking. I've been really excited about it. It's the best kept secret that I've ever seen with Sony, to the point that it's taken me a long time to even hear about this camera. So I'm so excited to share it with you guys. I've been so pumped over the last couple of days, and I've wanted to talk about it with everybody really bad. So it really is the ultimate camera. It's the ultimate device. It's everything put into one. It's everything that you could possibly want in one device. Next slide. And as we know, we've never really called any camera a flagship camera, because we've always said that we have different tools for different genres. Even with the last announcement with the Alpha 7S Mark III, with the last large announcements on the top, that camera was designed for videographers in mind that can also do stills. The 7R series was our pinnacle of resolution and for image quality, and then the 9 was our speed camera. And now we have a camera that encompasses everything and really takes professional cameras and professional imaging to another level. Next. Next. And who is the camera for? Like we said, every single camera is designed for a specific use. Well, this camera is designed, can be used for everybody. When you talk about 50 megapixels and you talk about 30 frames per second and you talk about the world's fastest, most tenacious, most accurate autofocus, unbelievable video with almost unlimited recording times, it's literally a device that could be designed for anybody. It can be designed if you work in a studio and it never leaves the room. You can be designed for a news photographer. It can be designed for nature, portraits, video, cinema, anything that you throw at this camera, it excels at. And we're able to do this, next, because we make everything in-house. We have an advantage because everything that you see on this slide is made by Sony on our own. And that means two things. It means that all of our components work together very well. It means that we're always seeing the future. When we came out with G Master a long time ago, we knew the future. We knew what cameras and sensors would be capable of, because to be able to shoot 30 frames per second, and more importantly, be able to autofocus 120 different times per second, you need an autofocusing motor in that lens to be able to do that. And we have that in our lenses, and we can foresee what we're going to do in the future because everything is made in-house. It's so important to realize that our sensor, our processing engines, our viewfinders, our construction, our lenses are all built in the same family, and we're all utilizing the same technology and being able to build cameras and technologies for the future. Next. Next. So we're going to go through this quickly, but at the heart of the camera is this new sensor. We are the largest sensor manufacturer in the world, and it's easy for us to, not easy for us to make something like this, but it's easier for us to be able to produce something like this that's so revolutionary, that this sensor is so fast and able to do things that no one's ever thought possible. We always had to make a decision between resolution and speed, but now we're able to get 50 frames a second, and we're able to do it 50 megapixels at 30 frames per second. I apologize. And we're able to scan the sensor so fast that we're able to record autofocus at 120 times per second. And that's because of the stacked CMOS sensor. Next. Next. 102,000 ISO, 15 stops dynamic range, the world's fastest flash sync, 8K 30p, dual CF Express type cards, the world's fastest USB and Wi-Fi in a camera like this. It's just, the list goes on, and we'll get into it in a second. So we'll keep going. 1,500 megapixels a second. I know we keep saying 50 megapixels at 30 frames a second. That's 1,500 megapixels of information per second. And when you look at this video, it's not like it's a shot that's never been able to be captured before, because it has been, but now you don't have to sit there, pre-focus, set it up, and do everything. The camera can focus so quickly, and the camera can do things so fast that you can capture images with ease and without having to spend days setting up a shot or half a day setting up a shot or hours setting up a shot. You can just happen upon a scene and be able to get something that's able to focus within 33 hundredths of a second, 31 thousandths of a second. So we talked about that full frame CMOS sensor, and this is where the magic happens. It's a stacked CMOS sensor, similar technology to what you find on the A9 Mark II, but now take that sensor and give it superpowers. It's been bitten by a lion, let's say, and we have a whole new genre of superhero because this sensor can do things that obviously no other sensor can do. And it's responsible for so much. It's responsible to be able to scan and be able to process information at 30 frames per second. It has 50 megapixels. We're able to fit 759 phase detection autofocusing points, 1.5 times faster readout speed than even the Alpha 9 Mark II, anti-distortion shutter. These are all things that are because of the hardware, because of this sensor. Right? Then we have the processing engine, because this is, I always say, where the sensor's really kind of the heart and the processor is really the brains, but it's also kind of the muscle because it's able to process those 1500 megapixels every second and be able to process it and send it to the card. Because it's not just processing those megapixels, it's also focusing and recomposing and auto exposure 120 times per second, plus processing all that information. 165 JPEGs, 155 RAWs, and if you don't need 30 frames per second and you want to go down to a mere 20 frames per second, you're going to be able to get 400 JPEGs at 50 megapixels or up to 1,000 JPEGs at 15 frames per second. And remember, that's 50 megapixels. And remember, when you're shooting at 30 frames per second, you don't lose anything. We're not giving you any compromises here at all. You're going to be able to retain full autofocus, full eye autofocus, full object tracking, full everything, full auto exposure at 120 times per second, twice the amount of calculations per second than even the Alpha 9 Mark II. Which means that every single frame, the camera is going to be refocusing 4 different times for every single frame that's shot, meaning that the days of ever missing a shot are over. You're never going to be able to miss that pupil that's in focus. You're never going to be able to do those things. And of course, you can do all this with 0 blackout. And we talked about it before in the video, but the viewfinder refresh rate is 240 frames per second, meaning that your viewfinder experience and 0 blackout means that you're going to have the ultimate viewing experience through the viewfinder. Silent vibration-free electronic shutter. Not all electronic silent shutters are created equal, as we know. And as we've seen with professionals in the field, even the Alpha 9 Mark II still stands above and beyond the rest of the electronic shutters in the world. And this just takes it to another level because it's 1.5 times faster than even the electronic shutter that's Alpha 9 Mark II, meaning that you have 0 distortion, being able to shoot at up to 32 thousandths of a second with fully electronic shutter. This camera can truly be used in fully electronic shutter mode all the time, being able to capture moments that you've never thought possible before. And because of that shutter, because of that sensor, we're able to do things like this, the world's first anti-flicker shooting with electronic shutter. So when you see with all other electronic shutters where it's very easy to be able to get banding, very easy to be able to get flicker, this camera can all but eliminate it. You can do it automatically, or you can set it up manually yourself with a high frequency flicker-free shooting. Whether you have LED lights or fluorescent lights, the camera will be able to correct itself and be able to give you image quality and be able to give you images and scan the sensor differently and be able to time the shots differently to be able to give you no banding in a lot of almost most situations. Of course, image quality. We talked about 50 megapixels. Quickly. We talked about 50 megapixels, which is amazing. 15 stop dynamic range, high ISO up to 102,400, and extremely accurate colors. Because remember, it's not just 120 frames per second autofocus, it's also auto exposure, white balance metering, and now we also have the white balance meter on the front of the camera, similar to what we brought up with the Alpha 7S Mark III. So you're going to get the most accurate color reproduction that Alpha's ever seen. And of course, you want more. You want even more accurate colors, you want even more resolution, we do have pixel shift multi-shooting like you've seen in our previous cameras. So you're going to be able to take 16 image composites, 4 or 16 image composites, giving you 199 megapixels. When you look at that, it's 17,280 by 11,520. It's just a mind-boggling number that we're able to process 796 million pixels of data, all to give you one file. And it's not just about resolution, it's also about getting the best possible color reproduction that you can get, because we're stacking all those colors on top of each other. Instead of being able to just take one frame and be able to just get one portion of that color, you're now being able to stack that on top of each other and be able to get the full color gamut in that scene. And now you can also use flash and be able to shoot your image composites at 200th of a second, where previously we could only do it at 1/8 of a second. So it's a really big difference, and it's a really big deal. So if you wanted to be able to shoot composites in a faster moving scenario or a situation where people are moving, you can do that now. Lossless compressed RAW. Woo! We've all wanted this. Lossless compressed RAW is absolutely stunning, where you're going to be able to get a file that's up to half the size of uncompressed RAW, but without any degradation in image quality. So you're going to be able to get faster performance. You're going to be able to get unbelievably good image quality, right up there with uncompressed RAW, but in a really, really efficient package. So. And it's also 14 bits now. In-body stabilization, 10-bit HEIF. No, we're not going to play that video. Obviously, with 10-bit HEIF, what you can do is that you can do 422, 10-bit 422, whereas JPEGs are 8-bit 420. So now you're going to be able to get a much higher quality image in a really compressed, versatile package. So you can be able to get higher image quality with almost the same exact size as a JPEG. Next. This is really interesting, and I wanted to add it here because I think it's important, because when you're shooting in APS-C, the camera is still 21 megapixels. And then in full frame large, so what you're doing is when you set the camera up to medium JPEG or medium file size, it's shooting 21 megapixels. But it's actually going to take the 50 megapixels and oversample it from 50 down to 21, giving you even better image quality than any other 21 megapixel file that's ever been out there. So you're going to be able to get even higher image quality than just simply going to medium and shooting at 21 megapixels. And beyond that, when you're out in the field, you can set a custom button to be able to punch in to APS-C to be able to get a crop and be able to get a zoom and still retain 21 megapixels. So when you're in APS-C crop mode, so you're going to be able to be shooting in full frame and be able to automatically punch in and be able to get 21 megapixels at 1.5 time crop, which is pretty amazing. Autofocus. We talked about it's amazing that every single thing we're talking about is literally the best that's ever been made. It's just incredible that we're able to have the world's fastest autofocus. And I feel like I say that all the time, and people make fun of me. They're like, oh, every single time you guys introduce a new camera, it's the world's best, the world's this, the world's this. Don't blame me, blame the engineers in Tokyo, because every single time we come out with something, we make it the best we possibly can. And the proof is in the pudding. You can use these cameras and see the reviews and play with it, and you can see it for yourself. 759 phase detection autofocusing points. And one little piece of magic is that we also have 759 phase detection autofocusing points in APS-C mode. Don't ask me how it's done. I'll never know. There's secrets that will never be told, but it's pretty unbelievable. -4 EV low light performance, so even better than what we had on the Alpha 9 Mark II. Next. Real-time tracking, extremely tenacious. I mean, it literally glues onto your subject. Even in a compressed sporting situation, it'll be able to find that face and be able to use our AI learning to learn that face and be able to track that face wherever it goes. So it's by far the most tenacious and best real-time tracking we've ever had. And we've added lots of little features that I can't get into, but you can turn it, you can toggle it on and off with a custom button. You can change the frame, you can turn the frame on and off. There's just tons of options in real-time tracking. And of course, something that we made happen was IAF, and now we have IAF for birds. And again, we're not the first ones to come out with IAF for birds, but it works. We make it the best. Everything that we do, we're going to have it work and work accurately. As you can see with our IAF, it never fails. You're tracking that pupil of the eye at 120 frames per second instead of other cameras that are doing it at 14 frames per second or 25 frames per second. You're going to be able to track that eye now of animals, dogs, bears, cats. Even when the animal's upside down to the side, moving out of the frame, it's going to be able to track that eye wherever it goes. And of course, now with birds, you're going to get that same tenacity. You're going to get that same precision that you're used to with humans and for animals with birds, which is stunning because they are the fastest, most unpredictable moving creatures. And now it's because of this sensor, because of this processor, that we're able to have that focusing on those birds for those unpredictable flights. Next. Light control, 400th of a second flash sync in full frame. It's incredible that we're able to set up that creativity for creators and be able to have a flash sync that's so fast. And when you're in APS-C, it's 500th of a second. Even better is that when you're in silent shooting mode with electronic shutter, you're going to be able to trigger your flash as well. So you're still going to be able to maintain all of the performance that you're used to when using the electronic shutter, even while using flash. And again, this is only because the scan rate of the sensor is so fast that it's able to keep up with light. It's faster than light, if you think about it. So next. The viewfinder. So for those of you that are able to see the viewfinder in the Alpha 7S Mark III, it's remarkable. It's huge, it's bright, the resolution is lifelike, but now we've taken that to a step to another level. We've made it now 240 native frames per second to be able to give you a refresh rate that is equal to the human eye. So when you're looking through the viewfinder, you're going to be able to have an unbelievable experience that's better than, it's like looking through VR. And I know I said that about the Alpha 7S Mark III, but now not just the image is VR, but the motion is VR, and being able to pan your shots and being able to shoot fast action is like nothing that anyone's ever seen inside of an electronic viewfinder. So it's really amazing. And of course, movies. 8.6K oversampled 8K video. So we're able to use 42 of those 50 megapixels to be able to give you 8K video. 8K 30p long GOP 420 10-bit internal. And we're able to do it at over 30 minutes of recording, and that's really, really conservative, as I was able to get much longer record times than that. So it's extremely durable. It's a feature that you can use. It's not a feature that we just put in there to sell cameras. It's a feature that you can use day in, day out, and not just for 8K, because not a lot of people have 8K TVs, but also for people that want to be able to get 4K and crop and zoom and manipulate and be able to do 4 camera setups or 4 views with just one video file, to be able to get really creative with just shots that have limited time. Next. Keep going, please. Yeah. But the resolution, obviously, at 42 megapixels is absolutely unreal. We're able to take screenshots and screen grabs at 42 megapixels. Next. And of course, a lot of the video features that we've grown and to love on the Alpha 7S Mark III are here as well. 4K 120p and 60p recording, XAVCS, all intra, and 2.8 times better rolling shutter than the Alpha 7R Mark IV. So we're going to have one of the fastest rolling shutters, or the best rolling shutter, so to speak, of any camera that's out there, and 5.8K oversampled video in Super 35 mode. Next. S-Cinetone, that's my second hand raise, because everyone wants S-Cinetone, and it's important because that color science that came from the Venice, that came from the FX9 and FX6 are in this camera as well. And this way you're able to match those cameras. You can use this camera in conjunction with those cameras and have a perfect match. You can have everything work seamlessly, so that way when you're shooting in multi-systems, multi-camera setups, you can use this camera alongside an FX9, alongside an FX6, and alongside even a Venice, to be able to have all of your footage be seamless and editable very efficiently. And of course, active mode image stabilization, which we introduced on a full frame camera with the Alpha 7S Mark III, is on this camera as well. Next. 10-bit S-Log2, S-Log3, which is important because the Alpha 9 Mark II wasn't capable of doing S-Log. It wasn't capable of doing 10-bit HLG. It wasn't capable of doing these things. So it's important to realize, even though it's something that we're grown to know on our Alpha lineup, it's here on this camera and gives us over 15 stops dynamic range. 16-bit raw output, the same as the Alpha 7S Mark III, so it's 4K 60p raw output, and it gives you the full frame of the sensor, meaning that DCI is very easy. If you want to crop and make it smaller, you'll be able to get DCI output out of the camera with the recorder. Next. Remember, this autofocus that we've been talking about this whole time works in video. It works in 8K. I'm going to be able to focus 120 times per second in 8K. At 120 frames per second 4K, guess what? I'm focusing every single one of those frames. That's never been done before. And it's really important to realize that the days of videographers and cinematic creators not trusting autofocus need to be over, because no human in the world is able to do what this autofocusing system can do. You can literally and honestly trust this focusing system to do what you need to do, and it can do things that no human can do, meaning that you can be more creative, you can be more efficient, and you can go above and beyond any expectations that you've ever had for an autofocusing system in a video camera in your life. Next. Digital audio interface and unbelievable heat dissipating. So very similar to what you've seen on the Alpha 7S Mark III, which has been absolutely phenomenal. 5 times better heat dissipating than what we've had on other Alpha cameras like the Alpha 9 Mark II. But like I said, in full 8K and the best quality that you can get, 8K 30p 10-bit 420, you're going to get over 30 minutes of video or until the card fills up, which is incredible. And you're going to get even longer record times, obviously, in 4K. Operability and reliability. Use the Z-Series battery. If it's not broke, don't fix it. Unbelievable battery performance on all of our cameras. Over 500 shots using the LCD, over 400 shots using the viewfinder. And of course, for video, you're going to get about an hour to an hour and a half of video. It has that same touch screen and touch menu and new menu structure that you find on the Alpha 7S Mark III, because it incorporates the Bionz XR processing engine. Dust and moisture resistant, magnesium alloy, dual CF Express Type A cards, which, as we all know, are absolutely phenomenal. They're durable, they're fast. And for this camera, it's even more important, because when you're pushing 1500 megapixels a second, that buffer fills up pretty quick, like we showed before, where you're going to get 165 images. Well, that buffer clears almost instantly with the CF Express Type A card. So it's crucial to use these cards if you're really going to be serious about shooting. But keep in mind also, when you're shooting 8K, you actually don't even need a CF Express Type A card. You can use the SDXC card, which is just a little tidbit that you might not know. Next. Workflow. 3.5 times faster Wi-Fi than the Alpha 9 Mark II. So you're going to be able to tether wirelessly and be able to send your photos and videos wirelessly faster than any other camera out there on the market. So we're going to be doing the MIMO supported multi-threading Wi-Fi to be able to give you the best performance that you can get. Super speed USB. So we talk about fast, we're talking about 10 gigabits per second USB-C, meaning that you're going to be transferring information 10 times faster than the fastest Ethernet connection that's out there, because Ethernet's limited to 1 gigabit per second. Now the Super USB-C port is 10 gigabits per second. Next. Everyone will be happy. Full-size HDMI and an Ethernet port, mic jack, headphone jack, that's super speed USB-C port. And of course, we still have that micro USB port to be able to connect accessories. Next. FTP file transfer, 3.5 times faster, and then almost 1.5 times faster with wired LAN. So for that professional that's out there in the field, this is really critical. And what you can see here is that also when you're connected via USB-C to our new Xperia Pro, which we'll talk about in a second, the Xperia Pro will also be able to be used with the USB-C. And of course, our suite of apps make this entire system. We don't just make lenses and sensors and viewfinders and magnesium alloy chassis, etc. We also make our own software and our own algorithms. And the software suite really elevates what you can do with our system. Xperia Pro, absolutely phenomenal. Hopefully it doesn't get lost in the shuffle of the announcement today. But this too, the long-awaited Xperia Pro, gives us a 5G millimeter wave cell phone that also acts as a 4K monitor that you're able to do live streaming and be able to send live video out in the field while using a professional camera like an Alpha 9 Mark II or a A1 or an Alpha 1. Can't say A1 anymore. You got to say Alpha, but it's like an Alpha 1, and it really gives you the most versatile device for imaging that you can have as an accessory for your camera, because you're going to be able to not just take these great videos, but you're going to be able to send and stream 4K video out of the device while you're also be able to have it act as a monitor. Next. And of course, as an actual phone and as an actual camera, it's absolutely phenomenal. 20 frames per second shooting, 60 times per second AF calculation. We're going to be able to have that 21:9 OLED 4K display that has Cinetone, waterproof, dustproof. The screen is just absolutely phenomenal, and you're going to be able to just have this device that perfectly mates with your Alpha 1. So that's it that I have for you today. Sorry, I think I went a little long, but we still stayed within the time frame. And when you look at that spec sheet, it's just absolutely ridiculous. Imagine I could have spent an hour just talking about that spec sheet, which is kind of what I did. But with the time that we had, I was glad that I was able to fit everything in.
Yeah, that was a great presentation. Thanks very much, Mike. And I know we're a little bit pressed for time, a lot to unpack there. So thanks for doing all that. And for everybody, Mike will be back on this stage in a little about a half an hour. And just a reminder that we have 2 stages going today. In addition to the Alpha 1, we've also introduced a new Xperia, and you can find out more about that on our second stream. Mike, thanks again for joining us today. Look forward to speaking to you again in a little bit.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear all your questions, because you probably have a lot, so it'll be good.